I would like now to invite Jolanta Reingardė, who is our team leader and senior researcher, and she's been involved in the beginning and also in the index and coordinated. So she will present all the scores, and at the same time we would also like the panel, the member states, especially really the decision makers who are using the index. If you would like to already look at and listen to Jolanta's presentation at the same time, so you're welcome to take the seats. If you would like to listen and see there and then join Jolanta, then it is really up to you. And also, before Jolanta starts, the next panel will be moderated by member of management board. So you see here on the screen, and Kalliope is also not only that she represents Cyprus in the management board, but she is also researcher and very experienced one. So that also brings additional dimension to the index. But now the floor is given to Jolanta.
Dear honorable guests, my dearest colleagues, and also the ones who are following us broadly on internet, I'd like to welcome everybody, and would like to start presenting the results. 2 years ago, around the same time, we met here in Brussels, and we discussed the scores of the index 2010. In 2005, you probably also had opportunities to meet each other and to discuss extensively gender equality. Today, we are launching results of 2012. So we have 3 points in time, 2005, 2010, and 2012. And the biggest question that we have today is there any progress? Can we talk today about more substantial change in the field of gender equality? Let's be optimistic, let's be positive, let's look at the results, and we will see actually how we can, drawing on the results, work further to improve the situation in the field of gender equality. Let me first start by telling you what's the work on the update of index, what it included. First of all, we had to update a methodological and measurement framework of the index, and about this I'll tell a little bit later. We provided an overview of gender gaps and levels for each indicator. Drawing on the scores of the first index, we, for the first time, provide overview of index not only across member states, but also in 3 points in time, 2005, 2010, and 2012. We also made first steps in building a composite measure of gender-based violence. And that will have a separate session and discussion. And finally, the country profiles provide an overview of the index scores and indicators together with other key data for each country. So in your hands, you have 2 publications, and 2 publications actually give us quite a broad overview of aggregates at EU level, but also country-specific information, which is probably more useful for policymakers at member states level to see what are the scores and what are the driving factors. Gender equality is a matter of fairness and rights. It doesn't solely focus on equality of opportunities, equality of outcomes. It also extends to equality in dignity and integrity. The task of developing gender equality index, it calls for clear direction of what is the purpose of gender equality. So, when we worked on a definition of gender equality, we had to answer many different questions. We have to examine different theoretical approaches to gender equality. We had to examine policy priorities of the EU. We also had to examine experience of other global indices and to come to a very simple and pragmatic definition, which would be useful and which we could use in this work of building the index. And the definition that we came to is that gender equality is an equal share of assets, equal dignity and integrity between women and men. It's a simple definition, and in a way, it's an attempt to try to integrate different approaches and without not losing an essence of gender equality, what gender equality is about. The Gender Equality Index measures gender gaps, but an important part of that is to stress that gender gaps are adjusted to levels of achievement. In this way, index takes into account the different situations in member states, different levels of achievement of member states, ensuring that the high score is a reflection of both low gender gaps and high levels of achievement. Country where women and men is doing equally bad in employment or education cannot be scored high in the index. We are aiming at, again, the low gaps or zero gaps at high levels of achievement. This is a very important part of the whole methodological work. Gender Equality Index includes 6 core domains: domain of work, money, knowledge, time, power, and health, and 2 satellite accounts intersecting inequality and violence. Here I want to say very clearly the fact that 2 domains are satellite, it in no way means that they're less important than the rest, because it's simply because of the fact that the problems of violence and intersecting inequalities were approached from different perspectives. That's why we couldn't include them in the core. For example, in the domain of violence, we're working on violence against women, and we cannot talk about gaps. That's why this domain is approached differently, and it's treated differently. That's why it stays there. The formula for Gender Equality Index looks quite sophisticated. I can assure it's not an easy one to understand. This is what it means to count gender gaps adjusted to levels of achievement. But the interpretation of the score, it's very easy. It's a scale between 1 and 100. The higher the score to 100 is, the better it is. So the equality, the benchmark is equality. Here, I would like to stop for a while and to talk a little bit about the main characteristics of the index. First of all, the index adopts a gender approach. Rather than focusing on human development or women's empowerment approach, gender approach means what? That positive and negative gaps are treated equally. In other words, it would be the areas where men are outperforming women and where women are outperforming men are treated equally. Gender Equality Index considers indicators that are more relevant in the European context. For example, instead of taking into account literacy rates, we take into account university graduates. Third, the Gender Equality Index aligns itself to EU policy framework. It gives preference to the indicators that are connected to the target and strategic documents of the Europe, such as Europe 2020. Also, the Beijing Platform for Action, because the European Union is committed to it. Also, Commission Strategy for Equality between Women and Men, Gender Equality Pact, and other documents. Gender Equality Index builds on a comprehensive framework which allows to show data gaps. Gender Equality Index is not driven by data. The concept of index is broader. It allows much more than what we have in our statistical systems. And one more thing is that the structure of the index is flexible. It relies on the core, on satellite domains, but such a system allows additional ad hoc analysis. You will hear about that in the next presentation. In addition, index builds on a benefits from a highly developed European statistical system. It uses a high-quality harmonized data, and this data allows meaningful comparisons between member states and also helps to minimize the impacts of different cultural understandings between member states. Now, I would like to start my presentation with the methodological overview, and I want to give a brief attention to the update of the measurement framework that we did. First of all, we updated the subdomain of quality of work. It's one of the subdomains in the area of work, because it required, this work was needed because we had to analyze it a bit deeper from gender perspective and to change a few indicators. And now this area, the focus on quality of work has increasingly gaining more attention in the European Union. And the question that we had to address was how to better capture quality of work within the gender perspective in the Gender Equality Index. And here, I would like to just very quickly tell you that our work was very much built on the conceptual work of another European agency, Eurofound. Because initial assessments in this area are focused on quality of work and employment. And more recently, this has been complemented by an approach looking at the jobs instead. So if the quality of work approach, it more takes into account on the impact of work on individuals, the quality of job is more focused on the jobs themselves. And due to the focus on individual variables, outcomes within the index, the perspective adopted is that of quality of work, not quality of jobs. Now, you see a table where in the fourth and fifth column, you will see the change of variables that happened from the first index and then the update of the index. So in the concept of 2013, we had the variables on flexibility of working time, health and safety at work, and training at work. These variables covered quality of work. In the new update of index, instead of 3, we have 2 new. It's flexible personal and family arrangements and meeting tight deadlines. Here I would like to say maybe a few words about why we did this change and why it was needed. First of all, the variables which are used in the new index, they come from European Working Conditions Survey of Eurofound. And it means that these variables will be regularly available, and this data will be sustainable, and we will be able to use it in the future. But also, flexible personal and family arrangement as a variable itself was more relevant from gender perspective, because it takes into account this time, 1 hour, 2 hours that a family member can take off at work for family or personal reasons. So it's quite an important variable for work-life balance, and from gender perspective, it's very relevant to have it there. Health and safety at work was replaced by another variable which actually measures intensity at work. It's meeting tight deadlines. Initially, health and safety at work, why it was a bit of a problem for us? Because it actually covers mostly industrial sectors, and it's more related with physical risks at work. It means that risks that more men are facing than women, and actually not all sectors are covered. Recently, we have to take into account that labor markets are changing and moving from this manufacturing to more service-based economy. It also implies a certain change in how labor is organized. And, nowadays, we have to talk more and to take into account psychosocial risks. And we thought that this meeting tight deadlines, an indicator for intensity at work, it makes more sense, and it is more relevant to be included. And training at work was dropped. It's not used in the new index anymore. Why? Because of concerns that it overlaps with another indicator in the domain of knowledge indicator measuring lifelong learning, involvement or engagement of workers of people in formal and informal education. So these are basically very shortly the reasoning. Of course, you can find much more in the report itself, why we had to change a little bit this subdomain. And another important factor, keep in mind, is that Croatia joined the EU, and that is also the reason why we had to recalculate the index of 2010 in order to be able to compare the second index with the previous one. So these are basically two reasons why we had to do these changes, and they will they are were needed, they are meaningful, and they are justified in the report. Now, let's go to the main results. So here we have 6 core domains of the index, and I will focus on them today. Now, let's start from the domain of work, and we will go from the domain to domain. Now, I would like to introduce very briefly the structure. This is the structure. We have 2 subdomains here: participation, segregation of quality of work, and we have a list of indicators which were included in the domain of work. Under sectoral segregation, I want to make it very clear that there the indicator used was number of women and men in education, health, and social work, okay? Working in so-called traditionally feminized sectors. This is an indicator which we use to measure sectoral segregation. Okay? Then FTE employment rate, just to make it sure, is full-time employment equivalent, which takes into account the number of hours that people work. Having in mind that women are very much represented at part-time employment, it makes sense actually to count full-time employment equivalent. Here we have scores for work. As you see, segregation and quality of work is far below the participation by almost 20 points. It actually shows very clearly where the big problem in the domain of work lies. Now, let's see what is the trend. In 2005, the score is 61, 2010 is 62, it's very, very minor increase, and in 2012 it's 61.9. Yeah, it's very flat, it's very minor. Probably we shouldn't be stopping much here because it's actually, the change it's very low. Now we see the number of countries where the situation increased, the situation improved or worsened. So we have 17 countries on the right side which, where the situation in the domain of work improved. I'd like to stop at several of them. Very briefly, Malta. Malta is the country showing the highest improvements in the area of work. The score is still low, but the progress is quite pertinent. Why? The driving factor in this situation was segregation and quality of work. Participation in employment improved a little bit as well, but segregation and quality of work had bigger effect on that. Situation is very similar in Ireland as well. If we take a look to Greece, which is on the other side, the scores worsened in both. And the situation dramatically worsened in full-time employment equivalent for both women and men. And of course, we know more or less much more about the situation of Greece. Now, the scores of the new index, how countries look like in the new index. We have 15 countries, almost half of European Union, which are still below EU average. And the variation between countries is also quite big, from 81 in Sweden to 53 in Slovakia. So this is the picture of the domain of work. Now, I would like to go to the domain of money. Domain of money consists of 2 subdomains. We take into account financial resources. We look also at the economic situation. The variables that are included here are monthly earnings and income, not at risk of poverty and income distribution. These are important variables. Have to keep in mind, very serious improvement is needed here. Income is counted at household level. we cannot grasp very important gendered aspect here. Cannot take it for granted that income is distributed equally at the household level. Therefore, very serious work is needed here to make sure that we understand important gendered aspects of income distribution. The scores for the domain of money okay. Here, economic situation has a much higher score than financial resources. Clearly, it's almost also by 20 points. So we can assume already which subdomain is driving the score high and down. Now, what is the change? Here we see a little bit bigger change, not but 3.7 points. And even though the score in economic situation is higher, the change is mostly driven by financial resources, meaning increase in lowering gaps or increasing levels of achievement in income and money. In 24 member states, the situation improved. Here we see more positive picture. We have again Malta here on this side. Of course, if you remember, Malta's situation in the domain of work was much better. So the score of Malta is mostly driven by economic situation. We also have in Malta very significant increase in levels of achievement in income and earnings. Cyprus. In Cyprus, situation is more or less the same. We have Greece again on the other side, where overall situation worsened. Achievements decreased in almost all variables, gaps reduced in earnings and poverty, meaning women and men are more or less living equally bad because the gap narrowed down, but the levels of achievement decreased. So now if we take a look to the score of index, of the new index, updated index, we will see that 13 member states are still below EU average. Variation is huge. In Luxembourg, the score is 92. In Romania, is 2.5 lower, is 38. So we see very, very great differences across EU member states. Domain of knowledge. Here we see the structure of the domain of knowledge. It consists of two subdomains. It's educational attainment and segregation and lifelong learning. And here in the third column, we see the indicators that were considered for this domain of knowledge. Here I would like to reveal the scores. See that lifelong learning, the score in lifelong learning is much lower than attainment and segregation. And it actually sends us a message. What is the change? It's contrary than in the domain of work and money. Situation in the domain of knowledge, it worsened by 3 points, and it's driven down by lifelong learning. In 19 member states, the situation is deteriorated. In Luxembourg, the score is driven up by attainment. Attainment in education increased. In Portugal, the situation is very similar as in Luxembourg. But what happened in UK? The overall score in the domain of knowledge in UK dropped by 18 points since 2005. The score in lifelong learning dropped from 90 points in 2005 to 54 points in 2012, meaning by 36 points. This is actually a result which is, it's require more detailed attention and policy response. What happened? Lifelong learning is clearly the area which is so increasingly important area leads or results in this situation. Now, sorry, I'll go back to, and here with the results in the domain of knowledge, we have results by member states. Denmark is very high, has very high score for attainment and has very high score for lifelong learning. In Denmark, the score is 86, which is almost two times higher than EU average. Now, the domain of time, here we see the structure, the domain of time, and we see the scores. We see that social activities has a much lower score than key activities. By social activities, we mean engagement in sports, culture, leisure time, volunteering, and charitable activities. What is the trend? The trend is like in the domain of knowledge. It's a second domain where the situation worsened. We cannot show you the data of 2012 because it's not available, and data of 2010 was used for the index. Now, how the situation by country looks like. In 20 member states, we have lower scores in 2012 than in 2005. In Spain and Estonia, the scores notably increased in key activities. So the situation here is better. In Spain, the scores increased almost 2 times. But if we take a look to the other side of the scale, we have Greece and we have Portugal. In Greece, the situation worsened overall at the domain level. And the key activities is a negative driver, meaning there the gaps and levels of achievement in key activities, they went down. Now, the new index. Here we have 16 countries which are below EU average, 4 Scandinavian countries that are on the top. Probably it's not surprising at all. But what is interesting is that variation between countries here is the biggest. If we compare countries on the right side with the countries of the left side, here we will see that the difference is almost 4 times, meaning these countries are high almost 4 times than the countries on the left side. Okay, domain of power. It involves political and conceptually social as well, and also economic subdomains. Unfortunately, social power couldn't be populated with data because it was not of sufficient quality or availability. But this is still to be done in the future. But 2 domains, political and economic, are populated with numbers. We have scores, which shows to us that economic decision-making or decision-making in economic areas still remains a big problem. But as it was mentioned already in opening speeches, here we see in the most visible progress because the score increased from 31 to 39. And the situation by countries looks like this. Here we have 20 member states where the situation in the domain of power improved. France, the driver is political power. Narrow gender gaps and increased levels of achievement in the domain of political power. In Slovenia, the situation improved in the area of economic decision-making. Okay? And then we have, on the other side, we have Slovakia. There the situation in the economic decision-making worsened considerably. And that's why we have actually Slovakia on the other side of the scale. So, of course, the countries that we see here on the right side, we probably have to admit that binding regulation in the area of political decision-making has its effect. Now, the score of the new updated index for the domain of power. We see countries, Finland, Sweden, Denmark on this side, and then we see countries also like Cyprus, Portugal on the other side. The variation is huge, 76 here. For Cyprus, it's only 17. Difference is 5 times. So we can see what a huge variation we have in this domain and which countries have to really put much more effort in this area. Now, let's go further. And the last core domain, last but not least, is health. Here we have 3 subdomains. One of them, unfortunately, stays empty at the moment. Just at the moment, we will be working hard to populate it with data, but the 2 that are filled in are status and access. Status is measured by self-perceived health, life expectancy, and healthy life years, and access to medical services measured by unmet medical needs or unmet dental needs. Here, I want to say that domain of health will really require more attention in the future, because behavioral aspects of health or determinants of health, very important, a very important area which has to be taken into account, because without it, the focus in the domain of health is more on survival issues which are not let's say, not important, but not that relevant in the European context. Determinant of health is something that it's really requires more attention and analysis. Yeah, we have a relatively high scores in Europe for the domain of health. Here now, if we see the trend itself, the trend is very not very substantial, we say only marginal, minor, and this trend is driven mostly by access to health services, meaning improved access to health services. We have 21 countries where the situation improved, and especially the situation in countries like Latvia, Hungary, Bulgaria, also Germany, and in all of these, the positive driver is access to health services in all of these domains. Now, the overall score, as in the previous index here, is relatively high. We have 13 countries which are still below EU average, but the variation between countries is relatively small. Now, let me reveal now the index. Here we have scores for every domain. Okay, and now, Gender Equality Index. What we see here, we see a distribution of countries, how they look like in the new updated index. We have 4 countries, say, which we have on the right side: Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and Netherlands. These top performers, say. Then we have 10 member states which I would say are very close to EU average, countries starting from Belgium to Estonia. And then we have 14 member states. It's like half of the European Union, which belong to this group of countries, which is from 35 to a bit higher than 40, not reaching the halfway to gender equality. The overall score is 52.9. What is the trend? Some of you already noticed that the score for 2010 is different. Yes, it is different, because quality of work was updated and Croatia was involved. So inevitably, the score of 2010 had to be changed in order to enable the comparison. But the change since 2005 is marginal. The line is flat. It sends a clear message to all of us how it looks by member states. Here we have countries on the right side where the situation improved. Congratulations to Italy, they got more women in decision making. This lifted country up in the scale. The situation improved, even if overall score is still low, but improvement is notable. And we have on the other side countries where the situation worsened. We don't want to name and blame here, but this is what the results show us. Gender Equality Index scores and variables and scores will be presented in the Institute's interface. At the moment, it's developed as we talk, The data is uploaded, it's expanding, and very soon we'll have this interface where all of you will be able to come to do a little exercise, to go to check variables, to check your country-specific information, and to see how it looks like. And finally, I want to conclude. There are two most challenging areas which still remain if I compare it with the previous index. Division of tasks between women and men, and women's and men representation in decision-making position. Yes, we acknowledge the progress. That's a good development, but the scores relatively, they still remain low. And lots of work still has to be done in this area. And my last observation would be that in order to make this tool stronger, in order to be able to cover all these empty subdomains which we still have on social decision-making, on behavioral or health determinants, we need better quality data. And the areas which could be improved is the area of the survey on time use, which is very important. It would give us very important information. The data on health determinants and data on social decision-making. What I mean in social decision-making is data on media, how women and men are involved in decision-making in media, in sports organization. We already have a good data on women and men in research. We will consider how to use it as well, because these areas, they play an important role in society, also very important symbolic role in society, which we have to take into account. I want to use this opportunity again to thank everybody for this hard work, for all my colleagues who worked very hard for this Gender Equality Index. I want to thank also personally to my colleague Anne Humbert, who's watching us on a video. And I know that she is with all her thoughts with us. And I want to thank everybody who's in Vilnius watching us now, and to all of you for your support, and I hope that you will find this tool useful. Thank you very much for your attention, and we are available to all questions that you have for us. Thank you.
You see much work, many changes, and there will be more changes, hopefully all positive in the future. Now I would like to invite the session panelists to take the chairs, and also the moderator, and we will discuss now how the member states, the decision makers, see the changes, what is the driving factor, and maybe the one hindering factor, so to share the experiences. So you're welcome mostly.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kalliope, Agapiou-Josephides. I'm member of the Management Board of the European Institute for Gender Equality, and I'm a professor at the University of Cyprus. Let me welcome you all here, congratulate EIGE for its anniversary, and welcome our distinguished guests here in this panel to explain to us how they manage against all odds to improve the situation in their countries. As was mentioned in the previous session, both by the Commissioner Jourova, by the Vice President of the European Parliament, and all the panelists, the gender equality is one of the most pervasive phenomena of human rights violations of all times. So the question is it an intractable phenomenon? The answer is definitely no, because it is socially constructed, and as such, it can be addressed and eradicated. That's why we are here. So I would like to give now the floor to our first speaker, who is Elke Ferner, Parliamentary State Secretary at the Federal Ministry for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth in Germany. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. I will try it in English, but I also have an interpreter beside me in case of that my English is not good enough to make it in English. I'm very happy about this report. Thanks a lot for this excellent report. And I think we can all see that the progress in gender equality is like it's very slowly. And if we go ahead in this pace, I think we all will not be alive if we have real gender equality. Therefore, we have to give more speed on our issues. And I'm very happy that we have progress in some cases, but we also have worsening the things, and in Germany we are glad to be better as we were before, but I think the driver in Germany is also the power, especially in politics, because in our parliaments and in the federal government as well as in the regional government, we have more women as we had 5 years before. Because of the quota rules in my party, we have in this period the first time more than 40% in our group of parliament in the German Bundestag. So you can see if you have measures, it works. If you don't have measures, it doesn't work. So this is perhaps for the first. I think we will be better in 5 years, because in the last 1.5 years we did really much measures to improve as well the participation of women in the labor market, as to have rules and legal rights also for men to have more participation in the homework and the childcare education. So I think in 5 years the progress in Germany will be much better.
Let's hope. Thank you so much for keeping the time frame. We give only 5 minutes to our speakers so that we have some time for discussion at the end of this session. I'm now turning to His Excellency Ambassador Marco Peronaci, who is Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of Italy to the European Union. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. And first of all, let me thank Virginia Langbeck from the director of EIGE for this long-awaited contribution that gives us an important, very precious overall overview of the situation of gender issues in Europe. And also, I was happy to see and acknowledge the presence, of course, of many members of governments, but also Commissioner Jourova and Vice President Lunacek. This is evidence of how much the European institutions are following gender issues and how much political attention is needed on this crucial topic. Of course, there are good news, and we were very impressed with the presentation of the new data, and we are very happy to see that indicators are here to help policies. We think that this type of work is crucial to fight this battle, and we encourage you to go in the direction, and we think it's very worthwhile. Of course, the challenges we're confronted are threefold: closing the gender gap, promoting a better work-life balance, and combating all forms of violence. against women. This is a point on which I'll come back because we think it's quite crucial. And one good reason and why I'm happy to be here is that I can share with you some positive results that we have had in our country. As the State Secretary from Germany said, when you have measures, they work. If they don't have, it doesn't make any progress. So briefly, we had between 2011 and 2013 some targeted legislations to close the gap of women's underrepresentation in economic decision making. And this has worked quite well. Namely, it was the boardrooms of stock exchange companies that was done in 2011, and it followed similar decisions for public undertakings in 2013. And that helped one of the level we're discussing about, which is the participation of women in economic decision-making and economic activities. More recently, very recently, in fact, this was on the 11th of June, the Italian Council of Ministers passed the so-called Jobs Act, and there we also have new measures for the reconciliation of living, working, and care. And they're quite interesting because, for instance, they go in three directions. The parental leave has been increased, the possibility to take it up to 12 years. It was 8 years before. This adds a greater flexibility. And also, that can be done with a salary of 30% within the first 6 years, whereas before it was 3 years. So it means that the concept of reconciliation between work and family is really extending itself. It's not something that concerns just the birth, but it's something that can be managed in a proper way. Then we have more flexibility in the use of the parental leaves, in the sense that you can use hours or part-time instead of having just to take the whole lot. And finally, we have financial incentives for flexible schedules, including remote work. So these are a new set of measures that will be that will enter into force in the following weeks, and we will be monitoring and seeing the impact on the issue. Of course, facilitating the reconciliation of work and family and private life is not only a key driver for social progress, it's also an economic need. I mean, there is ample research showing that there is a strong economic case for increasing the female participation in the workforce. So this goes in two directions. First, it reduces the risk of poverty and women's vulnerability, which is still above the average and which is still a very serious issue. And this, of course, is because of higher revenue, but not only because of that, it's also because of the insertion of women in the social networks with a more high-profile attitudes. And of course, it activates a virtuous circles whereby you have two incomes families, which of course is positive for boosting economic demand. So there are progress, but of course we should not forget that the challenge is also in our mind. It's a cultural challenge, and I will finish very soon. The gender stereotypes are strong, and we should work for that. And this is why I wanted to touch this point. We fully support the new post-2015 strategy, and Italy has co-signed a letter with our 20 member states to appeal Commissioner Jourova to make a stand-alone attention to the issue of gender equality. A final point on violence against women, which I touched at the beginning. I think that all our efforts on gender issues will fail if we do not really combat strongly this despicable phenomenon. This is the major sources of inequality and the systemic violation of human rights, and we strongly welcome the new indicators of composite violence, and we think that data and scientific evidence really can play and can be crucial tool to win this battle. And only through the eradication of violence against women will it be possible to pave the way to a better, more humane society, a society that is fully conducive to the genuine social, economic, and political empowerment of women. So we are committed to this objective, and thanks for inviting us here.
Ambassador Peronaci, thank you so much. Thank you also for mentioning violence against women, because I think this is the most symbolic act of subordination in all times. So I think it's a very important issue, and there will be no full gender equality unless we tackle this phenomenon. Thank you so much. I'm now turning to my compatriot, Demetris Michaelides, who is a senior officer at the Ministry of Labour, Welfare and Social Insurance in Cyprus, to explain this progress as well. Thank you so much.
Ευχαριστώ, Kalliope. Good morning, everybody. I realize that I'm here to explain why Cyprus managed to get a good degree, a good number, an increase in the Gender Equality Index. As you may see before, when Jolanta was making her presentation, one of the domains where Cyprus make a big progress is the domain of power. Nevertheless, we are at the bottom of the list, Jolanta. And this increase is mainly due to the appointment of 3 women ministers and the election of 2 women members of European Parliament in 2012. Nowadays, the situation has changed, but I hope that when we are going to see the next gender index, Cyprus will be again in a very good position. Now, regarding some other issues I want to share with you, and which contribute to the good results from Cyprus. I will give you some good examples and good practices we have in Cyprus. Firstly, we are now working on a project which is co-financed by European Social Fund with a budget of 2 million euros for the period of 2010 to 2015. And this is aimed at gender equality. The various actions are included in this project, and one which is worth mentioning is the so-called gender labeling. We established a committee composed by representatives from government, non-government organizations, workers and employers, who award the label of equality employer to enterprises who show increase and interest in gender equality issues. Apart from the gender labeling, also the best practice labeling is offered, again to enterprises who show increase in gender equality. Another good practice is the free legal aid we offer to victims of discrimination. This legal aid is offered by the Gender Equality Committee, a committee operating under the legislation harmonizing with the European Directive on equal treatment of men and women in employment and educational training. And after reporting from equality inspectors that the complaint from a victim is valid, we offer, we pay all the cost to this victim in order to appeal to the court and ask for compensation. I'm closing with a general issue. I think that gender mainstreaming is very important, and all stakeholders should be work together to manage to increase and improve the index in equality. I'm not going to give any other examples. I will stop, and at the later stage during the discussion we can give more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Demetris. I'm now turning to Martina Vuk, State Secretary of the Ministry of Labour, Family, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities in Slovenia, to share with us the Slovenian experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very. Is it? Yeah. Yep. Thank you very much. Hello to everybody. First, I would really like to thank the agency, everyone that was involved in this. I would say really very important and very huge work that you have done. I see this data, this GEI, as a really base so that we can, from what we can start, that we can compare, that we can see our results, and that we can prepare the measures and the right tools for the future. In case of Slovenia, we are actually, on first sight, we are about the average at every category that was measured here, and so we could say, yeah, well, we are satisfied with our situation, and we just have to keep it that way. But if we look closely at each category, we can see that actually I would like to point out two things. One is that we really can be proud and have to keep it that way, our public services. Our public services are very, very important so that everything else can be done. So our kindergartens, our education system as it is, healthcare system, social system. So those are the really basic things that we can have this really high rate of full-time employment for women in decades. It's not a new thing, that we have really, really a high rate of children, preschool children that are involved in kindergartens, and so on, so that we have 100% access to the healthcare and so on. So I think those are the basics that we have to have if we want to talk about the ability for women to be part of the labor market, to have the quality life, and then we can do some measures for the sharing of housework and taking care of children. And the other part, the other thing, is the category of power. There we have done some things, and this data from 2012 shows some improvements, and the next one that will be made will show even more improvements, I'm sure. Because what we have done nothing new. We have obligatory quotas for the political power, and it has shown that these are the real, actually very quick working measures that are very simple and effective. So now today we have 30% of MPs, of female MPs, and we have 50% of female ministers. So it's very simple, but it's very effective. But I like to say that, yeah, this is the first step. We have to have quantity if we want to have quality. But now these soft measures have to be taken, or had to be even before taken, so that this quantity can make quality. If you ask me whether this 50% of female ministers have the same power in actual decision making, I would say no. because we have 3 coalition parties. All 3 presidents of the coalition parties are men. 1 is the prime minister, 2 are the vice prime ministers, and you can figure it out further. So what our task is now to gain quality. And we went down in 2 categories, as well as the average for EU is, and this is education and what is the other? Time. And it is shown, I would connect this straight away with this economic crisis. Because of the lack of money, women are the one who step backwards and say, okay, well, my leisure time, I will not afford my sports activities anymore. We can't afford, I know, babysitter or something else, so I will, be at home at afternoon and so on. And this is the real result of the crisis that were, we had quite bad figures because of that, and in the area of education, the situation went worse in lifelong learning, and it's the same reason, lack of money. So I think for the conclusion, I would say that I don't agree that we have to find some sort of smart ways how to make the gender equality mainstreamed, so that we stop talking about gender equality. I wouldn't agree with that because I think that's very, very dangerous. I think that we have to do both ways. We have to have this, as I said, soft measures, so we have to have education trainings and public speaking about it. The people that mean something, so that the others take them seriously, but they really, really have to, or we all have to speak up. Because if we change our vocabulary with something softer, not really so recognizable, then we will lose the main goal, and we will stay with this 50%, and we will say, well, it's not so bad. But actually it is so bad, and this economic crisis was taken as an excuse. And what we should do next, it's in the same city, something for most of the people much more important is going on, so the EU summit. And what we should do is, if we want gender budgeting, we should make finance minister to hear what really gender equality is and what the benefits of these are. We need prime minister to hear it and to put it on agenda and to say, yeah, gender equality is something that is really important for the whole society, as was said, not for women. It's for the whole society and for the future of the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. Without any delay, I now want to give the floor to the public. We have 15 minutes for discussion. Please identify yourself and identify also the person to whom you want to ask to address the question. No questions? Sorry, help me? Yeah, okay.
Hi,
Please.
My name is Cristallo Vetridou. I'm an attaché at the permanent representation of Cyprus to the EU. And my question goes to Mr. Michaelides. I just wanted to know, because he referred to certain actions that were taken in Cyprus regarding gender equality. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about them, but at the same time, my question is, what is the systemic effect that you expect to have through these actions. From my understanding, these are EU-funded actions. If not, I mean, you can clarify. But do you expect these to be ongoing in the future? And because the money at some point will run out, so I was just wondering what's the plan for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think I will group the questions, otherwise we will not make it and not have the opportunity for many people to speak.
Good morning. My name is Fatima Duarte. I'm presiding the Commission for Citizenship and Gender Equality of Portugal. And actually my question goes to EIGE. I don't know if EIGE can answer me, but it was about the delay of this inquiry, of this up-to-date. In the last, we had a delay of 5 years between 2005 and 2010. Now we have a delay of 3 years, 4 years, and the data are from 2010. For many countries under adjustment programs, as is the case of Portugal, that was almost the beginning of the effects of the programs, and we have no ways in 2012 to produce the results of the politics that have been taken, especially on the domain of equality and violence against women, can give other results. So my answer is this one: why 2012? Can't you have more updated data? And why the shortening of the delay?
Okay, thank you so much. Other questions? Over there.
Okay, I think I have the microphone. My name is Cheryl Miller. I'm the founder of the Digital Leadership Institute. And in that connection, regarding work quality and, of course, the intersection of leadership in these strategic economic sectors that we call STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. From the global level, we're trying to connect leadership by women and policy on gender with policy on the growth of the digital society. And I'm wondering what kind of work is happening on the ground in your member states on this topic, gender mainstreaming in STEM, for example, or bringing digital discussion into the gender policy area. And if you've got initiatives to share, or what your interest would be in cultivating work in this area in Europe.
Okay, thank you so much. So your question is addressed to all the panel. Yeah, thank you so much. Can we take 2 more questions? One there and one here. Thank you.
I'm Ewa Rumińska-Zimny from Poland, the Congress of Polish Women. And I have actually like to follow on the same question before, to give initiative about mainstreaming gender into the new technologies and the new areas of innovative and creative economy. And the second question is about time use, and this is to EIGE, because I believe this is one of the crucial areas of the index. And this is a very sort of old data which are going to be used. And I know there's a new survey. Eurostat is just completing the new time use survey for all countries. So my question is, why this data were not used, or do you plan to update it? Because it's a very important area of the whole index. And we have, for the 2 successive indexes, the data coming from the same base. I understand they are very difficult to get data, but still we have new sources of data. So do you plan maybe any interim update on this particular part of the survey and the index? Thank you.
Thank you. So your question is addressed to EIGE.
The second question to EIGE, yeah.
Yeah. Another question there, please.
Chris Green, White Ribbon Campaign UK. My question is, how can we best explain the huge costs of the lack of equality to our governments and bring it to their attention over and over again? and of course there's been some work done on explaining the costs of violence against women. And I just wondered if there's some work on the costs of the lack of equality across the board.
Thank you so much. One last question. Assisting here, please.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I'm Uma Bardak, European Training Foundation, Italy, another EU agency. My question is to the first presenter about the index. The first one is, I think she said already that there might be some, there was a need for contextualizing to the EU member states, but I want to ask, there are some other gender indexes already by many different institutions. OECD has one, World Economic Forum has another one, UNDP has been doing it for a very long time with more emphasis on development, this is obvious. So is there, maybe the question is, is it really necessary to have another index, which may be a bit confusing because EU member states are also included in the other indexes in many cases? The first question. The second question is about the two maybe transversal or separate categories that you didn't talk. One is violence and the other one is intersectional. I didn't understand what does it mean exactly, this intersectional, and could you also give some numbers or statistics, maybe not special statistics, but on violence, the situation on violence in the EU? You didn't talk about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I now give the floor. You have to leave.
I'm sorry, I have to leave.
Okay, I give the floor first then, and please answer the questions that were addressed to all panels. So gender and technology and this kind of questions.
Yes, well, thank you for all these questions. I'm sorry I have to leave, but this is a busy day. I find that there were many interesting observations. I think it's not because a man said it, but I think the point about making it clear the cost of losing the battle on gender equality is crucial. Of course, this is something that has to be built into policy decision-making procedures. So this is why I was referring to the fact that it's very good that we have this data. It's good that we have indicator on violence. So that's another areas because the political battle can be won by using these tools, and I think that's the way to proceed. It's also interesting. The idea of digital and women and gender mainstreaming. I think that digital and the new economy, the new sharing economy, and the role that the digital is going to play into it opens up a way to a mode of thinking where women and gender can make a difference, and I think that challenge can be a very stimulating one. So. Thanks a lot. I'm sorry not to be able to stay with you, but I wish you all the best, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Demetris, you have one Cypriot question and one which is horizontal one.
Let's start with the specific.
Very briefly, please.
How much time I have? 10, 20 minutes? The specific question regarding budget and cost, of course, this is a very big issue. Nevertheless, we have, in our case, 2 million euros for this project, but we are going to continue after the 2015, after the expiration of the project, because we already established various bodies. For example, the certification body is costless the participants do not receive any compensation, and it's very easy to work together. I can mention some additional good practices about this on the issue of gender equality. For example, the last 3 years we have competitions organized together with the Ministry of Labour and the Ministry of Education, competitions among the pupils of the secondary schools. We had a drawing competition on gender issue. We have an essay competition and a poster competition on gender issues, and actually doesn't cost apart from the reward we offer to these pupils. But to address the general issue of the gender equality, I think that it must be mainstreaming in all policy areas, and we have to persuade the government that they have a cost. Somebody asked about UK government and the cost of inequality. We know that more than 50% of the population are women. So let's encourage women to vote accordingly and give their vote to those who are aware of the gender issue. I said before that in Cyprus we have appointed ministers, but we are lacking in the parliament now. We have a decreased number of women representatives. So this is what we need to do, to persuade the politicians that they will benefit if they promote the equality. And there are many stakeholders which should be work together. In Cyprus, we have the various ministries, the workers, the employers' organizations, the universities are working with this issue, non-governmental organizations. So mainstreaming and awareness raising to everybody is one way without a lot of cost to promote equality. Thank you.
Just a word on the digital economy and women. Is your ministry doing specific actions?
Not exactly digital economy, but now Cyprus is under economic crisis, and one issue which we discuss is the stereotypes and the segmentation and the fact that female prefer to study social sciences and humanitarian sciences instead of engineering, computers, mathematics. I think this is an issue which is the same all over Europe. But in Cyprus, due to the crisis, we do try to find ways to work on increasing participation of women in the so-called men's occupations.
Let me say that the crises cannot be of any excuse for gender inequality. I think they form the better opportunity to go ahead. We have the opportunity to do changes. We are not able to do it without crisis. So I think it's a very good opportunity to go ahead. Martina, I'm turning towards you for your answers.
Concerning the new technology, I cannot say that we really have some overall national program. Ministry of Education is in charge and has a few, is financing a few programs so that girls and young women would decide to study also these not so popular studies for women, where the majority of men. is studying. But what I wanted to say is about the costs of inequality. One research have been done from one of our professors at the university concerning the costs of inequality if we don't have the balanced representation in the managing boards. And it was shown, we cannot say that, it would go up now, but it was shown that in the boards where there were men and women, the members of boards of the companies, the rates, the results of the companies were even to the 40% better than in the ones that only men were the members of boards. So why I'm saying that we cannot say that immediately if we change all the companies would have the 40% better result, but it will change, and because the decision-making process is different, the focusing on the issue is different, the development of new projects is different if there is balance among the people that are the ones that make decisions. So that's the next step that we are going, as Germany already did, because we strongly believe that this balanced representation has to go further into the economics, not only the politics.
Thank you so much.
Elke, I will underline this. I think it's not only a question of to have more point of views to get better results, also economically results in the enterprises, also for the shareholders. It's not only for the workers, also for the shareholders. But it's also a waste of money. We have the best educated generation of women Europe ever had. So we spend a lot of money in the education of women. And then we tell them, okay, go at home, care for your children. If you want to, you can work part-time. And you have not only a gender pay gap. In Germany, it is 22%. The average in the EU is 16%. You have also a gender pension gap. We have in Germany a gender pension gap of 56%. And this for the best educated generation of women. And you see it in these studies where you need a good degree from the school to go into the studies, for instance, for medicine. This is in Germany, you need to be #1 at school to go in these studies. So more women as men study medicine. But what happens? This profession gets a female profession. And how will be the payment? It will get worse. So this is the situation we face to. So I think we need measures for equal pay. We need measures for more women in leading positions. We need also measures for more to have more possibilities for a partnership between men and women. Then also men do not want to work 70 hours a week. They also want care for their children. But if they do so, they are regarded as weak, as not so straight as they should be. If women do the same, they are too straight. So it's a little bit crazy, like we give this. And with STEM, we make every year a Girls' Day in Germany. So we have enterprises in the technical areas who invite girls to come into the enterprises that they can see what the professions are and what they can do. But I think we also need another education at school, because if you have, as I learned in mathematics, if the mother makes a cake, she needs something, she needs grain and something and butter and something, and if she makes 3 cakes, she needs 3 times of this. And if you have the same question regarding men, they build houses or make something like this, and are also role models. We learn from the first steps, and we need also role models, women in male professions as well as men in female professions. And the last question is, I think that we need a discussion about the value of work, especially the value of social work. We need more social work in future because we are getting elder societies, and this work is mostly done by women, but it's, for my opinion, it doesn't mind if you have heavy stones to bring from one point to the other, or if you have a person which you help to get out of the bed or to get into the bed. So this is also discussions we need, and therefore I'm deeply convinced we need a separate gender equality strategy in the European Union after 2015 as well. We need this strategy in all member states.
Thank you so much. Jolanta, you also got a lot of questions. Yes, thanks for answering briefly.
Is it working? Working, yes. I got a few questions. I'll try to be very short. And the first question was why date of 2012? And yeah, we would wish to have a data, I mean, as late as possible data. But the thing is that the fact is that now 26 variables are included in index, and there are certain statistical criteria that are used, and we have to ensure the coverage of all member states, and it's for some variables simply data is not available. For example, I can give you an example that we're using variables from European Working Conditions Survey of Eurofound, and the survey is carried out every 5 years, and so it's not simply possible even to get more kind of up-to-date information for certain variables. And we follow this statistical requirement that data for all variables as much as possible should be of 1 year. And this, of course, is this kind of bounding us in a way, not rule, but decision that we made, but it makes an impact on the year of data that we choose. Unfortunately, we could not include the data for later years. Actually, I'm not sure if I understood the question about the delay of, maybe we could address it during the break together, because I was not sure what is meant by that. Now, time use survey, variables for the time we're using from European Working Conditions Survey, not Eurostat. Why? Because yes, you are right, new data will be released soon, but the problem is that the data will not cover all EU member states, because time use survey, it's actually carried out in this Eurostat terminology and the gentleman agreement. It means that it's only countries that agree to participate, and it participates, and it's not all countries are there. And it is, of course, a problem for our index, because we need to include all. We want to cover all. We are working closely with Eurostat. We are part of different working groups, including the working group on time use survey. We are there, we are raising our concerns, and we try to actually also contribute to that. But we will be following the developments for sure. And if one day we have this harmonized European time use survey variables that will fit to our, we will for sure take that, because that's out of question. Now, I would like to leave violence for further discussions, because we'll have a session on violence, and some results will be revealed there, so I will not address this issue now. But intersecting inequalities, this will be the focus, hopefully, if nothing will change, of our next index. In the next index of 2017, we are planning to focus on intersecting inequalities. Yes, it's different. Approach is different there. We look at intersecting inequalities from the perspective of a bit gender plus. We have to go beyond gender and to see what are the major differences in the groups of women and men. Because there are other factors or other differences that make impact. It can be age, it can be, I don't know, ethnicity, can be other factors that make important impact on that. In the current index, you will find in the report a chapter on intersecting inequality anyway. There we're taking a data in employment rate, and we are looking at how employment rate differs in the different groups, foreign-born people, nationals of the country, different age groups, and also according to social status, meaning lone parents or I have some data here in front of me. I will not be quoting data, but just would like to make again reference that you could find there. Single parents with single with dependent children, single without dependent children. Here we also see very important differences in those categories. This is a little bit of what is there, but of course there is a huge space to elaborate. And why another index? There was a question why it's needed. There is a chapter in the report as well where gender equality index is compared to World Economic Forum gender gap index. It's needed. It's needed for Europe because it reflects European reality. Global indices, they simply, even if they wanted to do that, probably would be very difficult because of when you look at the problems at the global level, those problems are very diverse, but not necessarily all issues are very relevant for Europe. Like I gave an example of literacy rate. So instead of literacy rate, we better look at the situation in higher education and segregation. And what happens with global indices? Europe always clusters high in global indices, and the differences between European countries are so minor that you cannot actually see clearly. Even in the report, we included the interpretation scale. Global Gap Index interprets scores between, allocate scores between 0 and 1. And their European scores, they are distributed between, let's say, 0.7 to 0.8. It's such a small range that you cannot actually see differences. While European scores, we interpret them from 1 to 100, and there the distribution is from 33 to 70 something. We have a much wider range of, and you can see differences much better. So I am convinced, and I think hopefully most of you are convinced, we need something more European, something more which is more adjusted to our European problems and European priorities.
Thank you, Jolanta. I would just thank our distinguished guests for sharing with us their experience. And if I may conclude the session, I think it's obvious that gender inequality manifestations, far from being isolated acts, they are part of a set of power relations, part of a complex matrix of social hierarchies, of which gender is only one parameter. That's why it's so difficult to change. And what we need is we need to change the mindset. We need to change this matrix of social hierarchies that allows and tolerates gender discrimination. So thank you very much for being today with us. All the best. Congratulations to EIGE, to Virginia, and all the staff who worked so hard to get the index. Thank you so much.